Hey, David, welcome to the show. As a way of getting started, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Brian. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. Not much to tell. I'm in my early 30s, just had my first child, a beautiful baby girl named Bray. And we have a corgi, a ferocious little 18-pound devil named Titan, who is fantastic.
Yeah,
Aside from that, I've been doing sales for 15 years, and I'm happy to be on the show.
cool. And how'd you get into sales?
It started off when I was a really small child, and I would constantly ask my bubby to make me some more delicious foods and to pass me some extra dessert, and she would say no, but I convinced her to do so. So that was the first sale I made, and it was probably the most important sale of my life because my grandmother was the best cook in the world. So started off with high stakes, and then since then I enjoyed talking to people. I enjoyed schmoozing and the constant negotiation of everyday life.
Yeah. And what type of sales have you had the most experience with?
Advertising and media, probably. Traditional forms like print, but more so in the digital, social, and software spaces, predominantly focused in the cannabis industry, actually.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So you mix a hobby and a profession, huh?
You know what? You got to do what you love.
Yeah, cool. And who do you sell to? Is it not company wise, but is it within the marketing group, but who typically is the point of contact
So within that industry specifically or in general?
in general?
In general, I would say marketing directors, marketing managers. You sometimes start talking off with brand managers, but really the people that I find myself speaking to the most are in that CMO or senior VP of marketing type of. They're the decision maker. Sometimes you got to take a few bumps along the way to get there, but ultimately they're the ones who you want to speak with.
And what do they care about?
They care about sleeping better at night, and the way they do that is to know that whatever brand they're in charge of is in good health. And what that means to them is maybe it's mass awareness, maybe it's reaching a new niche audience, maybe it's reaching an audience they never felt before, or maybe it's just differentiating themselves enough so that they know that people remember their name.
Yeah. And how do you communicate that to them?
Well, I try to figure out the ways that the ways that they are marketing
Yeah.
across any other media. And once I have a better sense of what they're doing, you don't want to sell them the same thing because there's nothing that distinguishes your offering from the same old, same old. So once you understand the problem, you can figure out a creative approach to the solution. And the beauty is not one company provides 100% of any solution. That's
Yeah.
why there's so many variations. So as soon as you find that sliver of daylight, you have to connect it to them waking up in the morning nice and happy and not stressed.
And that's it, because I've sold to that persona before. And I think you got to get to the point of what do you see as your alternatives?
Yep,
Because,
exactly.
yeah, because a lot of them are living 5, 10 years ago.
Oh, it's funny. When I first got into digital advertising, it was about 8-ish or so years ago. And I remember the fear that existed in a banner advertisement, like, oh, mercy, what is this? What's a pixel? What? I don't understand any of this. And it was a fun time to be a salesperson because it's like you're showing a whole new world. I worked at Post Media for a few years. They Canada's largest print digital publisher on the National Post and so on. I remember speaking to one of my small time print clients, the type that pays a couple $100 for a quarter page ad every month and figures that they'll see the world of difference. And I was talking to them about digital marketing, and the client called it witchcraft. That was great.
Yeah.
And so it's a fun atmosphere to be working in for sure.
Yeah, because I run into it all the time because people don't know what a podcast even is. Never
Yeah.
mind, how is it different? And why is it so special? And they're used to webinars or in-person events, and they put all their money towards that, but they've been going down precipitously for the last 5 years. And now,
Absolutely.
obviously, online or in-person events are dead for the foreseeable future. How did you get them thinking differently?
Well, it's basically expanding on what you were saying. A lot of the time I focused on clients working within the trade show realm. So I was at a company called Multiview, and they're a B2B firm focused exclusively on trade and industry. So any association clients we would call, we're all budgeting away for this trade show event, whatever industry it is every year. And you're trying to squeeze in there, offering them something that will reach a lot more people, cost them a lot less money, and hassle
Yeah.
them way less than going to a trade show, but still there was that adamant of nope, we're going to fly to the trade show and shake some hands on the trade show floor. That actually carried over to where I was at Lift & Co. in the cannabis space. Their I guess claim to fame to start their growth was they were running the two largest cannabis trade shows in the country. So all these clients that you're trying to sell, digital advertising, social media, content, data, retail marketing, all these fantastic marketing offerings, you couldn't cover those potential because they were still taking away some of this budget and squirreling it away for the trade show. So it was a very delicate way of doing things because you had to tear down either your own offering or an adjacent offering to sell them something else as well. So you have to walk that tightrope very finely because you don't want to dissuade them from your overall company too much. You just want to shift their priorities.
Yeah. The other thing I noticed with that persona was that they were more interested in building their portfolio than they were in the performance of their marketing, because their lifespan, at least in the US, is very tight, about a year and a half. And
I figure that if they have all the different, like as many of the different answers as they can, different marketing tools and tactics and strategies, that more means better without fully understanding the strength and the unique differences of each one and utilizing them properly. So I agree with you. They think that, if we're doing this, and this, we have to be doing well.
right. Yeah. And that's it. And I also noticed that the attention span was very short, meaning they do one thing this quarter, something else the next quarter. And they didn't understand that it was a flywheel, that you got to get it moving, keep it moving, move it more. You got to do some experimenting, but not just abandon and start over again, because they're campaign minded versus
that's perfectly it. That's flight to flight. They don't understand that branding, it doesn't even matter if you're in something as over commoditized as chewing gum or something as nascent as cannabis. Branding never stops. It's a lifetime journey, and you need as much reach, frequency, and all those fancy marketing terms. Those are very important. You need to be reaching as many people as you can for as long as you can and getting in front of them steadily. And there's nothing that drove me crazier than someone being like, well, we tried digital for 3 months, we tried this for 3 months, and we're going to stop it and we're going to reach a whole different audience and do this and that. And I'm sitting there thinking, what are you doing?
Right.
You need longevity to base results on. You're just going to be driving yourself crazy, myself crazy. And at the end of the day, you're probably not going to be around in your role because you are doing way too many things at once when you should not be.
And what separated you as a sales rep? What made you great?
Relentless tenacity, I would say. First of all, I've worked in so many different environments. I started off as a telemarketer, no fancy titles. I telemarketed windows and doors. I called people at home between 6 o'clock and 9 o'clock Monday through Friday in my first year of university to check on their windows and doors. You don't survive in that industry if you can't have some chops on you and sell. So I think aside from the tenacity and consistently calling and not being deterred, was I like to have fun. I think you gotta have a sense of humor on the phone. If you are gonna speak to somebody at their house when they're in the middle of dinner and you want to keep their attention and you want them to make sure they're focusing on some pimply faced teenager trying to sell them windows, you better make it fun for them. So I stuck around there for a few years. I really learned a lot there. And so since then, it's just been relentlessness, competitiveness, and fun. Yeah. When I got to my first digital role, though, I learned the benefit of consultative selling from one of my mentors. And that is probably the most important thing that makes me a great salesperson. Is aside from all that, I will help you as best I can, not just with my company and my offerings, but my perspective, my experience. I'll take all that to help you succeed, because if you succeed, I will succeed.
Well, let's touch on that phone thing, because that's something that most people would do anything to avoid. What was the mindset? Was it just having fun with it, or changing the meaning of the rejection, or the hang-ups and the yelling?
I'm assuming that I will answer that question. I usually have a very good anecdote that I share, but I don't know if the show is accepting profanities. So,
we're open.
Well, I'll bleep out the one word, but I guess to answer that question, on my first day of telemarketing, my second ever phone call, I call this person. We'll call him Mr. Smith. I said, "Hi, Mr. Smith. I'm David calling from blank windows and doors. Are you the owner of the home?" He says, "David, go your mother." And I said, "Well, sir, if I'm my mother, who is going to sell you windows?" So he laughed. He bought a bunch of windows, about $40,000 worth. They were not the greatest windows, but that's not my end of the stick. I just, sold the lead. And it was, since then, I think what makes the phone so very fun is that you're going to get rejected all the time, but you quickly learn that it is the hardest type of sales to do, and that nothing will quite match calling into somebody's house, getting rejected, getting yelled at, sworn at, hung up on, threatened left and right. And it really leaves you without fear of rejection. Like it makes you realize, okay, you'll say no. I've heard the worst that you could tell me. That's it. Once no one click, we're done here. And so cold calling into B2B environments, that's super easy and super fun. People are reluctant to do that. I love nothing more than those power hours where once, twice a week, you dedicate an hour or 2 hours, you have your list of prospects, ring, 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 ring. It's imperative. And that's why I'm proudly able to say at every company I've been at, I have been the leader in new business revenue generated, like hands over year, not even close, because you got to hunt.
Well, that's it. And you made it playful. You used comedy for both yourself and them. You weren't making fun of them. You were
Absolutely not.
Yeah. But you got them to crack up, right?
That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, because you kind of took away the power that he thought he had over you.
Well, even so, nobody likes getting phone calls. Just our
Right.
smartphones continue to evolve, right? The least used app on any smartphone is the phone itself. We're at a point now where your phone rings, you're thinking, okay, it's a robocall, it's spam, or it's something terrible. So you're already up against a dying communications medium that like simply just inspires no happiness or faith out of anybody. If you can get someone to laugh or open up and humanize yourself, then you're no longer just an empty receiver. You're doing all the work that will quickly be accomplished within 30 seconds of a video call, and now you have that same rapport. And so it's a great way to turn it to your advantage, but it's hard.
Yeah, that first minute is the hardest. And
100%.
Yeah, and if you can have fun with it, because people do want to talk, but they don't want to be pressured, right?
Right.
And
People
what
want
motivates you? Is it competition? Is it money? Is it success?
It's going to work every day and doing something I enjoy, being on a team that I enjoy, in an environment that I enjoy. Money is great. I should maybe say it's very important, considering my wife could hear me and we have a 3.5-month-old. Well, actually, no, she just turned 4 months. Hopefully she didn't hear me get that wrong. But it's more than just money or the competition. It's all of it together. And if you're in the right sales team, on the right environment, you have a balance of such unique characters and leadership and a unity, because we're all in the trenches together. Everyone's getting rejected left, right, and center. And being a part of that type of environment makes it so fun to go into work.
Yeah.
And that's really what I want. I don't want to be one of those pound the phone, pound the phone, pound the phone. My soul is out of my body. I want to love going into work and love what I do.
So it's the camaraderie and that part.
Yeah, I would say that's the camaraderie. It's being a part of a good sales team.
Yeah, that I don't hear that often. Because a lot of the great salespeople seem to be a little bit of lone wolves, right? They kind of do it despite the team instead of because of the team.
See, I've fallen into that category myself a couple of times here or there, and ultimately, you are the lone wolf when it comes to sales. I mean, you have to go out yourself,
whether you like it or not.
But I like coming back to a den of good wolves, whether they're at the top or the bottom of the pecking order. You just need that camaraderie. You need that safe place to exhale, because you look cross-departmentally, every department has their challenges. One's not going to say otherwise. Work can be a pain in the ass for everybody, no matter what you're doing. Sales has a unique set of pain in the assery, if you will, and we're rejected all the time. There's even the best sales people in the world are rejected all the time. It's just the way, it's the nature of the beast. So no one else can understand that. No one else can understand that your day is, 80, 90, whatever percent is no.
It's that roller coaster. That's what got me all the time was you close a deal, you get a meeting, you have a great demo, and then the next one's a hang up or something.
Exactly.
And it is kind of good to share that with other people.
I know, like I talked to some friends at different jobs across departments here saying, the ups and the downs, and they're just like, no, I've been working on the same steady project here and doing the same thing there. And I get it. For some, it's fine, but it's boring as hell.
It can be.
Relates to that. For me anyways, personally, of course, each their own.
Yeah, because when I was an engineer, I remember that feeling Monday morning where I just sit down, no one was bothering me. I got to work on my work. And you don't get that feeling in sales. It's like a little bit of panic Sunday night, you're like, and then you go in on Monday and you just hit it, right? And but once you get in the rhythm, there's nothing like it.
Yeah, there's the euphoria of coming off a call where one of the mild companies to call it pitching fire, for I guess lack of a better term, or insert whatever sales term there. But there's nothing better than knowing you had a phenomenal call. You answered questions. You brought up solutions. You were benefit focused. The whole 9 yards. There's nothing that compares to the high of that and closing a hard fought deal.
Yeah.
Nothing compares to the low of working on a client for 2 or 3 months and you're submitting RFPs and you're talking to the entire team of every department, this and that, and ultimately they reject you. It's
And
a critical.
how about some of the epiphanies that you had as you progressed in your skills as a salesperson?
Well, the biggest epiphany I had, and probably the biggest professional pivot and realization, was when I was at Post Media. I started in 2016, right around the time of October, November-ish. We were about a year out from cannabis legalization in Canada. And the epiphany that I had was there's this industry that's coming up for full legalization in about 12 months or 13 months from where I am now. Google and Facebook are still to this day not accommodating to cannabis branding or cannabis marketing. And at the time in Canada, none of the big publishers, be it Post, be it Star, be it Globe and Mail, or any of the other media firms, were doing any coverage. And that baffled me, as we are legalizing this industry across our country and nobody knows what the hell it is or who is doing what or any of the brands. And I found out that it's not so much that they cannot market, it's that these publishing companies, these marketing firms wouldn't let them market. It was too
Yeah.
taboo. It was scary. So that was the epiphany, was I need to figure out a way to get myself to be allowed to go after clients in this vertical, because there's a whole industry coming that has money and desperately needs branding and no one is doing anything about it. So after some passionate discussion with my superiors, they gratefully they listened and they started letting me sell print and digital marketing to the cannabis space. So I was able to sell the first traditional print and digital advertising and marketing and content marketing campaigns to Canada, or rather to cannabis companies, the first in the country.
Yeah.
And that was the epiphany, was that no one else is doing this and somebody should be. So since then I started to help grow that industry and create marketing opportunities for them, create marketing publications for them, and lead the growth and development of it, which carries over to this day. And some companies are still doing the same things that I started.
And did they buy differently than other industries?
At first they bought like gangbusters
Yeah.
because they couldn't
Didn't.
do anything.
Right.
Like
Had no choice.
like there was like, they had this money at the time because they all completed such ridiculous amounts of funding, and there's only so much you can invest in your growing facility. They had all the extra capital, but they couldn't really do anything. They focused on niche cannabis magazines. They focused on trade shows, but what they needed was some mainstream platform to reach the broader country. And so having this in front of them, they're like, okay, let's get going. And then that all stopped when it was legalized, because then the regulations came in really, and then now it's creative buying that they have to do. So now they have all this money again. Well, actually, they really don't. The money has changed now, but they have money to an extent. But now they have to be super creative in figuring out ways to spend it, and it is a very taxing thing. And I know this is not directly sales related, but the government of Canada is killing this industry by not letting any company build a brand whatsoever. So that's the sales environment that I was in.
Okay. Wow, that is
Yeah,
different.
it's hard when every channel of communicating a brand to a consumer is more or less blocked. I've still been able to figure out ways around it, but it's not easy. The
Yeah.
sales cycle is way longer than it should be, because there's a block of time dedicated to is this legal? Is this compliant? And once it is, you've wasted so many weeks just getting your I's and T's dotted and crossed that you're now behind the eight ball. So it's
Oh,
definitely
yeah, because that's it. Because in the U.S., they have both tobacco and alcohol have very strict advertising constraints and
yeah.
cross-state issues as well. So you probably had to educate yourself on what does that mean for the cannabis companies, or were you kind
Mm.
of in uncharted territory?
It was both. It was a little bit of for the first year before legalization, it certainly was uncharted territory. It was whatever I figured I could get away with, I did. And then once the legalization happened, it's okay. I can't just be having the same mentality or mindset, because clearly things have changed. So it required reading a very, very boring, lengthy document that the government released to understand the marketing regulations. And then it was all about finding the gray area, not being illegal, of course, but there are rules. There are always creative ways to apply those rules that are compliant. And that's what you need.
Right.
And that's what I would take into it. I said, really, at the end of the day, you don't want to get fined by Health Canada, because that's terrible. But I don't think that'd be the worst thing in the world. Any company, and that's why they tried going on Facebook and they tried doing Google SEM, until someone find them or slap their hand, get as much exposure as you can, which is what's needed. Because how the heck else are you supposed to sell a product to a consumer if every method of branding and communication is locked? So it's finding those creative loopholes. So you have to work in the gray.
And how do you keep yourself sharp in sales other than just doing it? What process or steps or mindset do you have?
Well, I try to listen when we do either team meetings or when we're walking around on the floor. I try to listen to different calls or different perspectives and try to apply one line, one technique. I hear something on the phone, like a good introduction. I'm like, well, that's a great way to break the ice. And I start practicing it. It's like when you're playing golf, right?
Yep.
I'm not good at golf, but I always try to do at least one or two new things every round. I do them poorly, but eventually I will do them less poorly.
Yeah.
That's the idea. So
Well,
it's
that's good, because you've got that kind of performance mindset versus knowledge mindset, where you can learn the line, but applying the line is very different.
Exactly.
Right. It's
it's
like what you did with the Windows guy. Like, I don't know, you couldn't have rehearsed that, right? But
and I wouldn't recommend using that as a first day line, but if the situation comes up, you should definitely use it, because it worked one time.
yeah. But I think that playful mindset, not taking yourself too seriously, and you don't come across as a sales guy, which is a
I'm
compliment.
going to say thank you.
But people sense that, because usually the sales guys are stiff and rigid and overly professional instead of down to earth, human, not so fast talking, willing to listen and stuff. And clients sense that. Well, what would you have given advice to yourself when you first got in that you now know?
So when I first got in, it was a very transactional mindset, given the nature of house-to-house telemarketing, right? You're not really looking to build up long-term rapport there. No. And that carried over into my first role at Multiview when I was doing digital there. It was a very one call close, slam the client type of mentality. And I fell for that hook, line, and sinker, because I came from the transactional background. But that's where I met my mentor, who beat into my head the fact that you have to be holistic and consultative, and that's it. It's cover everything and care about everything. You're there to serve them. It doesn't matter if your company has all the right answers, if other companies have the right answers. If you can serve and satisfy your client and make them trust you, that's the lesson you need to learn. I wish I knew that and had that type of approach throughout my youth and earlier jobs and earlier sales jobs leading up to there, because I think I could have done a lot more good. And I try to teach that wherever I go.
Yeah, because too many people have the transactional mindset.
Exactly.
Let me qualify you, and then let me move you through a process. And that's not where they are. They're probably unaware, or maybe curious at best.
We're not products on an assembly line.
Right. Yeah. And people aren't robots. They got their own job to do, right? Their own priorities. And you have to kind of explain a lot. It's a little bit persuasion, a little bit education.
Yep. And you don't want to do that. And there's a risk of you have to persuade and educate. But if you're not as down to earth and connecting with them, then it'll be very patronizing in a lot of ways. And it'll just be yammering on and on. And nobody wants to pick up an unsolicited phone call to then be lectured. So it really is a delicate balance to make sure they're getting value at every stop in the conversation.
And how would you get them that way? Did you have questions that you would lead with, or did you stories or examples?
Yeah, I would try to make it as personal as possible. I do believe in the rapport building. I know there are sales schools of thought that really don't focus on rapport building as people are busy. Certainly you have to listen to be receptive to clients on the phone. If they're not open and friendly, you don't want to keep peppering them with questions. But if the rapport building doesn't work, then yeah, I immediately start asking as many open-ended questions as possible. I love what are you worried about? What keeps you up at night? what benchmarks make you successful. If someone's building a new brand, I say, tell me if your brand is a person and I'm sitting across the table from your brand, who am I talking to? What do they like? What do they hate? What do they stand for? Where could they improve? Why do people love them? Like that type of questions. And so I try getting them to picture their brand in front of them, and they seem to just start gushing at that.
Yeah. And how did you learn about their persona? Did you talk with other internal marketing people or just osmosis or?
Yeah, I think it was just osmosis. It was
Yeah.
when you get to the point where you're talking to different companies and different brands and you're hearing colleagues
Same
talking
thing.
about this and that, you start hearing people asking about their brand. So I don't know where exactly I picked up that specific question from someone who's super smart. I'll tell them that. So if you're listening to this, thank you. But I think that if you can get the client talking about something, that's the goal. And what do they care about more than the success of whatever they're doing?
Yeah. Cool. Hey, this has been a fun conversation. Where can people go to connect with you?
If people want to connect with me, I'm on LinkedIn, David Geffen, not to be confused with that record producer, David Geffen, who's going to
Oh,
definitely
that poor
make searching
guy.
for me a lot harder. Yeah, that multi-billionaire schlub, that guy. So you're going to probably not find me as easily, but I'm there. Look for the beard. Email, shoot me an email to talk. It's very easy. It's davidgeffen@hotmail.com. I kept my hotmail.com because David Geffen. I don't have any numbers in there, so it's super easy.